In Pit Lane, brought to you by Oasis. Luxury living with great city views, including Albert Park. By Holder East. Everybody, and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane, coming to you from beyond the suburban curtain here in beautiful parts unknown. Yes, we're still locked in as per usual for the last few weeks, but we're back on air and we're hoping to give you some bit of entertainment and a bit of light relief during this particularly difficult time. Remember, you can watch In Pit Lane every Friday night at 5:30 on Channel 44 Adelaide and at 8 p.m. on Channel 31 Melbourne. And of course, we're on every week on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, and we'd really like you to head there and like and subscribe, and also click the bell for notification. But look, once again, hasn't been a huge weekend in motorsport. We're going to bring that to you in a second with the news, but before that, this week we're going to get a bit nerdy. We're going to get into the world of race car engineering with our special guest, Andrew Mather. Andrew is a driveline engineer with Jaguar Land Rover in Great Britain. He's also got years of experience in Formula Student, Formula SAE as we call it. He's both as a team leader and as a scrutineer, and also commentator for Formula Student, which is the biggest event of its kind. Well, close to the biggest event of its kind in the world. Probably the German competition is just a little bit bigger, but we'll be finding out all about Formula SAE, Formula Student from Andrew Mather a little bit later on after the break. But right now, what there was in the world of motorsport, some sad news, of course, with the passing of Sir Stirling Moss, and we had the opportunity of speaking with Sir Stirling about 10 years ago now at Motor Classica. Lovely man, and if you want to see that interview in full, that is up on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. But right now, let's check out what has been happening in the world of local and international motorsport. This is the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. Tributes are pouring into the memory of the great Sir Stirling Moss, who passed away earlier this week at the age of 90 after a long illness. Widely regarded as the greatest driver to never win the Formula One World Championship, Moss finished runner-up between 1955 to 1957, behind his teammate Juan Manuel Fangio, and in 1958 behind Mike Hawthorne. He retired from full-time competition in 1962, following an horrific crash at Goodwood. However, he shocked everyone in the early 1970s by making something of a comeback, racing in a number of categories including touring cars, historic racing, and even a famous start in the Bathurst 1000, alongside longtime friend Sir Jack Brabham, although that race certainly didn't go according to plan.
Jack and I, of course, were great enemies on the track, we're good friends off it and so on. And when I was offered the idea of driving with Jack, I thought, terrific. And I said to Jack, Jack, every race I've ever been in with you, you go before the flag's even fallen. So you're in Australia. If you jump the start, they're not going to worry too much. So you go first, you see. And Jack's there, and I'm expecting him to go off like a ruddy rabbit, you know. And for whatever reason, he stalled on the line. Of course, somebody behind bashed the back end up and did our car quite a bit of damage. So it really it came to nothing. But I have to laugh at the situation. I mean, here were the Jack and myself together in the same car, and I hope to think with a chance of success. And it came to nothing beyond the start line, really.
And of course, it was I think it was a Triumph that actually sort of took you out. So a bit of British justice there, taking you out in the end.
Oh, I didn't realise what it was actually.
Dolomite, if I remember correctly.
Ah, well, you remember better than I do. I can't remember. If I look in my diary, I'll probably confirm it. Yes.
Sir Stirling Moss is survived by his wife, Lady Susan, and all of us at In Pit Lane send their most sincere condolences. 2 times Australian Supercar champion Scott McLaughlin has continued his run of top form in the world of sim racing with more strong performances online over the past week. McLaughlin won 2 races in the opening round of the Supercar Z Series, held at a virtual Phillip Island and the Monza circuit in Italy. His good form continued on Sunday with a strong come-from-behind drive into second place at a virtual Michigan Speedway, playing another good strategy race to finish second to race winner Indy 500 champion Simon Pagenaud. McLaughlin now leads both the IndyCar Series and the new Supercar Series, all the while increasing his international profile in preparation for his full-time move to the United States in 2021. Supercars Australia have flagged the idea of finishing the 2020 series in 2021 at Mount Panorama at the Bathurst 12-hour race. Supercar CEO Sean Seamer told Foxtel that it's absolutely on the cards and under consideration. It's an event that we promote and it's an opportunity to capitalise on that. It won't be another Bathurst 1000, but we'll have to think of something different, like a sprint format. The move to feature a round of the Supercar Championship as part of the 12 hours could cause some problems though with current TV rights, with the 7 network having free-to-air rights on the 12-hour race. In Formula One news, Formula One Managing Director Ross Brawn has given the start of July as the deadline for a full 19-race season for Formula One. Speaking on Sky Sports, Brawn said that a European start would be favourable and that the race could even be a closed event. He went on to say, however, that the sport would prefer to race in front of crowds, although they would continue to be guided by the latest medical advice and government regulations. Brawn admitted, however, that any resumption of the calendar after October would seriously restrict the number of races available, which may be as low as 8 rounds, assuming that the championship finishes this calendar year. Speaking on the same program, McLaren CEO Zak Brown said that the current COVID-19 crisis may well be the serious dose of reality that Formula One needed to make the sport more sustainable in the future. We need to make some tough, aggressive decisions to give all the stakeholders who are committed to Formula One the confidence and the reason to continue to stay committed. Brown claims up to 4 teams could disappear from the grid unless Formula One and the FIA handle the situation appropriately, and yes, McLaren could be one of them. And that's the In-Pit Lane news for the week commencing Monday, the 13th of April 2021. We'll have more news next week. And when we come back, we'll be joined by our special guest all the way from England. He is Andrew Mather, and we're going to be talking Formula SAE, Formula students for the rest of the world. Lots of fascinating stuff for those of you who are into race car engineering, and find out what the future is for Formula student in these locked down times. That's after this break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. The Motorsports Fan Zone would like to thank Holder East and their exciting new development, Oasis Residences, for their support. With stunning views across Melbourne, including Albert Park and the Bay, this urban sanctuary is a place of quiet elegance where homes are designed to rejuvenate and inspire. To find out more, contact Holder East on 1800 180 108. Well, joining us on the line from his home in England right now is Andrew Mather. And Andrew, are you stuck at home at the moment, or are you continuing your work with Jaguar Land Rover? What's your situation at the moment?
Hi, Brett. Great to be here, first of all. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange time at the moment. We are in lockdown here in England, but I'm glad to say that some things are still continuing. So I'm working from home, but which has its challenges. But yeah, still working. Jaguar Land Rover still operating as normally as we can at this point.
So what's your role at the moment with Jaguar Land Rover?
So for like the last few years, I've been working in the driveline engineering department. So on a day-to-day, I work on product delivery, specifically on transfer boxes. And kind of taking it from very early concepts through to production and what the public see out there on the road.
Well, what our viewers would be most interested in, of course, is your involvement in Formula Student in Great Britain. And tell us a little bit about that. I mean, we get very excited over here with Formula SAE, which we've been covering for many years now on In Pit Lane. We get excited if we get sort of 28, 30 cars. I think we had just over 30 last year. How many entries do you get at Silverstone for Formula Student over there? And what's the state of Formula Student, Formula SAE in Europe at the moment?
Yeah, so we normally get around 90 cars year by year at Silverstone for Formula Student UK. Always run the week after the British Grand Prix. Similar numbers used to be in the UK probably about 15 years ago when the event used to run at Bruntingthorpe Aerodrome. back in the day. But yeah, it's really, really grown over the last 10 years, especially. Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be able to run the event this year, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But really, over that I say last 10 to 12 years, former student or FSA in America and over there in Australia really has expanded in a huge amount. We've got pretty much, I think, about 5 or 6 competitions, maybe more now, across mainland Europe and UK as well. But what's really good about UK is you see a lot of different teams and different nations getting involved. I think we've probably at UK got the most number of different nations represented worldwide when the event does run in July.
Of course, as you say, is coming straight after the Formula One Grand Prix. Is it still the case that you get those a few familiar faces from the garages of Formula One who might hang around a couple of days and have a bit of a look see at what some of the next generation might be coming up with?
Yeah, there's always a bit of a Formula One presence at Formula Student UK. So in years gone by, Ross Brawn has been very involved as patron of the competition. A lot of the teams will use the opportunity of Formula Student as well to kind of bit of a talent scouting mission to see who's out there and who's potentially going to be their next engineers for the future years in Formula One. We've had Jenson Button at the event the last couple of years as well. We've been lucky enough to have him there. He's been there on kind of his Santander duties, and he's always very interested. He's come and spoken to myself and Sam Collins in the commentary box as well. It's always very exciting when Jenson turns up or someone of a personality of that description.
Yeah, it's very interesting when sort of a big name that turns up and takes an interest. I mean, many years ago now, the late great Peter Brock turned up at a round when we were out at the GM Proving Grounds out at Lang Lang for a Formula SAE, and Brocky was just amazing. He was on the phone to Craig Lowndes and Jim Richards and anybody that he knew, and was saying, "You've got to come down." He was just so excited, that he said, "You've got to come down. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen," and it does fire up imagination because it's so full of energy, isn't it? It's a very unique event.
Yeah, I don't really think there's any motorsport event like it, and it does take. For new people, it does take a little bit of explaining as to what the whole concept is. Obviously, you've got the dynamic trials, which people can pretty easily get their head around because it's very similar to, as you say, autocross events that run around the world. Then you've also got all of the static events, the judged events, where the students' skills are put to test in a different way there in terms of, because at the end of the day, it's an engineering competition. It's an international design competition. And the ethos of it is to support those students, to give them the skills they need when they go out into the industry. But I think the other thing as well is it's a very unpredictable competition. At the end of the day, these are student-built race cars, and some of them are incredible pieces of technology, and a lot of hard work goes into them. But at the end of the day, they are student-built, so sometimes they don't quite work. There's unreliability in there. The endurance event especially, just getting to the end of that event is a massive achievement for any team, and that really shows at the end when you do see a team succeed, get to the end of that event, that the whole team just breaks into raptures because of all that work that they've done the last 9 months typically of their lives that they've dedicated to. That's the moment that they're looking forward to get to the end of that race, and it's always great to see.
You mentioned the static events, and what's the situation over there? I've seen in Germany, for instance, they open up the static events to the live stream to the public. Now in Australia, we've tried to get SAE here to do the same thing, and they've been very hesitant to sort of make things like the business presentations public. And that's really, as you say, a big part of the presentation. What's the situation in England?
Yeah, so the UK static events, kind of just how it works in terms of the facility, they run a lot of the judged events from garage to garage, so as they kind of go down the pit lane. So it's interesting when Germany have done that streaming aspect. I have to say that the judging can be different. When I was a competitor myself with the University of Birmingham between 2010 and 2013, the German level of the scrutiny that you go under the judging events is a step higher, I'd say, than other competitions. No disrespect to them, of course, but the the German attention and efficiency it really does show out there, and they've kind of been leading as well over the last few years. They've had a great stream as well as the FSA Australia one as well. So at the moment, UK doesn't do any of the streaming for the static events, but who knows to say in the future. As I say, we're going to have to do something a little bit different this year because we're not going to be able to hold an event at Silverstone. So in the modern days of technology and the things that we can do, maybe that's a way forward to still keep people interested in the competition that is going to happen in some form to show people what the students have been doing.
So has there been any feedback from the organisers of Formula Student UK in terms of what they want to do and what they might be able to do in terms of making it a virtual competition? Because I can see, like a lot of actual advantages in being a virtual competition, because you can think a little bit more outside the box, because you don't actually have to build this damn thing in the end. You can be a little bit more adventurous.
Yeah, I mean, I think the primary concern from the IMechE is that they realise that a lot of these teams, a lot of which who will only do Formula Students, some will go and do, or no normal year, go and do other competitions such as Germany, such as Spain, such as Italy. A lot of the teams this year aren't going to get that opportunity, and they still want to reward the efforts that have gone in. As you say, some teams won't have built their car yet. Some of them will have been halfway through. Some of them might have even finished before we kind of get into traditional exam season. So I think they are looking at that virtual way of doing it. I've been involved in the scrutineering the last couple of years on a Thursday and Friday. I know that that's always a key experience for the students. So we're looking at whether we can do like a dummy scrutineering to give the students that experience of, if they've got a car ready built, we can then go through the scrutineering process as if we were there, to give them that feedback on how they built the cars. And same for the design and the cost and the business events.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. Look, stay with us at the moment. We're going to take a break now on In Pit Lane on Channel 31 and Channel 44 in Melbourne and Adelaide, and of course on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. You're watching In Pit Lane. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, we're with Andrew Mather, who's joining us from England now. We're talking all things Formula Student, Formula SAE, as we say here in Australia. And Andrew, what's the situation at the moment? Formula SAE here in Australia for many, many years, one of the exciting things was all those little sort of left of field ideas that you didn't see anywhere else. I've sort of said for the last few years, we now seem to be getting into an almost Formula One mindset, where now there seems to be an optimal design, and pretty much all the cars are starting to look the same. They're starting to have the same sort of same sort of features. Is that a danger at the moment? And what can we do to shake that up so that we don't have cookie cutter cars?
Yeah, I kind of share your concerns there, Brett, that the sport's very much changed over since I started getting involved back in 2009. I always remember my first UK competition, which was in 2010, and a team very, very close to you guys, the Monash University team, who came and stayed with us at Birmingham that year as well, came with this winged thing, and wings weren't really a factor in Europe at the time. And I actually think they got a little bit of discredit that year. They ran a very, very strong program, very reliable car. And even though they had done a lot of work in the wind tunnel, they didn't quite that year convince the European judges that they really did work. I think anyone who's obviously followed FSA Australia already knew that they worked. But what that triggered over that 5 years, or that next 5 years, was an absolute explosion in aero technology, especially as Monash then came back in following years, and you had other teams from that part of the world, Edith Cowan Racing, for example. And you're right, that did really change, and a lot more teams started focusing on the aero, and you do see a lot of them with the big wings now. I think for me, what I want to see in the future with Formula Student and Formula SAE is that we don't lose that ethos of what the brief for the car is, that it's meant to be a gentleman racer's car. It's meant to be one that you can put to a business case and in theory put into small level production. You also sometimes see some of the wing packages are the same year in, year out, as you say, that cookie cutter effect. I know they have talked about potentially changing the rule set of the aerodynamics year on year. So say 1 year you can do whatever you want, then a more restricted year, then maybe 1 year with no wings at all, just to make it a bit more of a challenge and make sure that you don't just have carryover engineering through the whole years. But then again, the challenges that the industry have, cars are getting more complex, especially as electric cars come more into the fore. The industries are going to need students, they're going to need engineers that understand that complex interaction between all the different bits of the cars. So I think there's a balance to be made between encouraging the technology, encouraging that innovation, yet still learning the core engineering skills that companies will need in the decades to come.
One of the controversial things with if Formula Student Germany had gone this year, they're very much moving towards encouraging autonomous vehicles. We've seen a couple of autonomous cars here in Australia already. The problem with autonomous vehicles, I suppose, is that it's great to encourage that technology, but is there a danger once again of as we get pushed to be more and more relevant to the road car market, that we sort of make the event not as accessible to smaller universities and even large universities that don't get behind their competition as as universities like Monash and RMIT do here in Australia?
Yeah, I think that's where you might see a bit of diversifying competition to competition. As you say, Formula Student Germany have taken the decision to go to a fully electric competition with a big autonomous factor. That in itself, I credit them for that. That's a challenge that is going to be in the industry. And as a mechanical engineer myself, and I'll admit this is one of my areas of weakness. Mechanical engineering and control engineering for many years have kind of been two separate disciplines, but they are very much crossing over now. What engineers need to be able to do in the future is fuse those two together. So if you're a controls engineer, have that knowledge of how the mechanical systems work, know what you're actually controlling. But then on the same part, the mechanical engineers need to have that respect and that knowledge of the control side, so that they can make their systems actually go forward and be something that will work. But as you say, at the same time, there's a lot of students out there, there's a lot of universities, not with the budgets of the bigger universities, who can still tap into Formula Student to teach the students those practical skills. I know that's something that definitely UK are thinking of, at least for the short to medium term, not going the full electric route, still giving teams that opportunity that if they want to do a steel space frame, internal combustion, 4-cylinder engine powered car that's very light, very simple, as traditional FSAE cars have been built for the last 30 years, then you can do that. And if you build a car well and design it well, you'll score good points in the competition.
Well, it's certainly interesting times ahead. We've got a whole new raft of regulations coming in the World Endurance Championship and over at IMSA, and I imagine we could talk about that for ages. Hey, thank you for joining us. If people want to keep in touch with what you're doing, are you on social media or anywhere that they can see what you're doing?
I am indeed. So a lot of the motorsport things I do are run under the name of Double Dash Motorsport Media. So me and my pal here in England, Howard Mitchell, we do a lot of commentating, mostly karting around the country. But we're starting to expand as well. As I say, we've done, or myself, I've done Formula Student with Sam Collins from Race Car Engineering the last couple of years. That's always been a good bit of fun. So yeah, check us out. We're on Facebook at Double Dash Motorsport Media and Twitter as well at Double Dash MM.
Well, it was great to catch up with you, and hopefully once all this nonsense is over, you'll get an opportunity perhaps to come over here to Formula SAE, or even might even get the opportunity for me to head over there at some stage, because it would certainly be great to see sort of something on the scale of Formula Student UK. As viewers would know, regular viewers would know on the program, Formula SAE is one of the highlights of the year for us on In Pit Lane, and to see it at that scale would just be unbelievable. But Andrew, thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the other side. But now, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
You too, Brett. Stay safe, and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you to Andrew, and I hope you enjoyed that. Formula SAE, as we say every year, one of the highlights of our year, and unfortunately probably will not happen this year as a result of the current situation. But there are lots of opportunities, lots of theoretical things that they can do in a competition like that you can't really do in a lot of other competitions. So Formula Student, Formula SAE will no doubt continue into the future, and hopefully next year we'll be back up at Winton for Formula SAE 2021. But from all of us here, hope you're well at home. Hope you're safe. Stay indoors. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week on In Pit Lane. Remember, head to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Click the bell icon for notifications. And until we see you same time next week, from all of us here at In Pit Lane, thanks for joining us, and bye for now.